profits from these frozen assets is something the Commission is using in support of Ukraine. On the mechanism itself, I am very happy to call Balázs to provide you with additional explanations, sorry, on the payment of yesterday eventually, but on the mechanism itself, my colleague Guillaume can assist you. Beyond that, there is no speculations we can make on a hypothetical plan. We have a reality. We have the windfall profits in action. And as I just said, the reality is that there was a third payment yesterday, which all goes in support to Ukraine. Jacob from remote, still on Ukraine.
Change the background. Yes,
Appreciate.
Still on Ukraine. Still in Ukraine. Is the Russian oil and gas ban going forward as planned? And is that possibly part of the discussions, or would the EU be able to put that on the table as part of the negotiations?
Look, the packages we have already adopted are going into force as planned. So on the details of what entered into force when and what will enter into force with phasing in periods, I can refer you to Olof or to the Q&As we have published each time we have adopted a package. So everything is going ahead as planned. On future sanctions packages, as Anita has said, we never comment on before they are adopted, so we're not going to be in a position to do so this time either. Yes, still in Ukraine. Go ahead.
One more thing, thank you. On the logistics tomorrow, you said afternoon. Is there maybe a more specific time you could tell us? And also, Trump already called this meeting, the Alaska meeting, it's a feel-out meeting. What would be your comment on that?
On the last question, we really have no specific comment. As I said, we welcome any effort to bring a just and lasting peace for Ukraine, and this is all that matters to us. On the timing, we're not in the habit of providing more specific timings, usually in this case even more, as it's Chancellor Merz that has organized the meeting, so it would be for him to provide all the logistics detail. What we can do from our side is confirm that the President will be participating in the rounds that he has organized, and then in the call of the Coalition of the Willing. I do not see other hands raised on Ukraine. If it's on Ukraine, it's your moment. Go ahead. Yeah. And if you say your name and the media outlet for which you work, we really appreciate it every time. Thank you.
David Price, Your Democracy and
You should wait for the microphone, David.
Oh, sorry.
Now,
Sorry.
yes.
David Price, Your Democracy and Schumann.info. I'm sorry if I missed the beginning. I had a delay to getting in here. But I'm wondering about what the long-term policies are and what basis it's being made inside the European Commission. We're talking about long-term security, so and also the questions which come up are very similar to what's happened in history, recent history. For example, there's Alsace-Lorraine after the First World War, Second World War, the division of Germany, which was resolved, and the resolution was made through Schumann's project of 1950, and he provided a plan that Ukraine, for example, could be part of a larger European community. I wrote a couple of books about this, which I gave to the Commission.
David,
about
the
how this could
question,
be done.
please. I'm
so
sorry, because otherwise...
The question is, in what depth is the Commission policy being analysed? Because Schuman spoke about all these things several years ago, and this institution is based on Schumann's concepts in theory. But I'm wondering what has been done to analyse those policies about how whole of Europe could be unified through, for example, an energy community, which would have institutions similar to the coal and steel community, but would be involved in Ukraine's specific assets. Now, these are, really important questions. Can you tell me what in-depth studies have been made?
David, no, I cannot tell you what in-depth studies have been made, and I struggle a bit with the question. I think we have many long-term policies to bring our union closer, both within our member states. I don't know if this is what your question related to, but for example, we're doing all efforts to make our single market even stronger and to be more integrated in a number of fields, including energy. Then beyond the union as it is today, we're doing everything possible to bring closer also our enlargement candidate countries, be it via the growth plan, be it with the Ukraine facility. We are really doing our utmost to already bring part of the benefits of the European family to them, bring them closer to us, of course, in exchange for reforms and investments, just as much as for our member states with Next Generation EU. Beyond that, I think we have a networks of agreements, be it trade, be it deep and comprehensive agreements with a number of partners within the European area, and we have a very strong cooperation, for example, with our UK partners, Swiss, Norway, Iceland. I think there are many instances in which we have a long-term common vision and common projects that we share with them. On the study specifically, I wouldn't have anything to point you at. Other questions on Ukraine? Go ahead. Yeah. Ukraine? No? Then no Ukraine. Let's open the floor to other foreign affairs questions then. Let's go to you.
Thank you. Razia Akoch, AFP News Agency. I have a question about Gaza because in the HRVP's comment, she mentioned that the ministers underlined a shared sense of urgency and the first priority was getting more aid into the Gaza Strip. So I just wanted to understand what the European Commission was doing, because it says we urge Israel to allow more trucks, but beyond the rhetoric of urgent, are there any phone calls? What pressure is the EU going to use to get more aid in? And I also wanted to know more about the discussion about, did it seem like ministers were going to move forward with other plans? Just to have more of a sense of what happened, what was discussed in the meeting, because the statement is the usual lines about two-state solution and a ceasefire, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of the context and what was discussed, there was absolute consensus on the need of urgency, on the importance of getting the humanitarian aid in the Gaza Strip, but also in terms of the need to ensure that international NGOs that are facing administrative obstacles are let in and fully allowed. The same when it comes on the humanitarian aid, the airdrops as such that are only considered as a temporary solution, but this cannot be alone a solution that carries out the needs of the population. And of course the ceasefire, which is much needed to secure also the release of the remaining hostages, but also as a third element that you have mentioned, the negotiated two-state solution. It's an important point because for us as an EU position, the peace in the region entails a viable Palestinian authority. So this is on this one point. Then in terms of the progress made, this has also been something that has been discussed, that progress has been made compared to what it was there before, also as a result of the High Representative's efforts in her diplomatic outreach with the Israeli authorities. She's in constant touch with the Israeli authorities and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and we're making the point on ensuring that Israel will implement all the commitments without further delay. So this is what I have in terms of the overall atmospherics and context and the diplomatic outreach. I don't know if Eva would have more on the practicalities on the humanitarian aid side.
Indeed. Other questions on this for Anita? Go ahead.
Nordin Fridi Al-Arabia. Anita, my question is, did you see yesterday any move from member states towards concrete action or measures European Union may take against Israel relating to the lack of implementation of the humanitarian understanding between High Representative and the Israeli authorities, and mainly these concrete measures could be taken if Israel go ahead with the plan of occupation of Gaza? This is my first question. My second question, do you see any new move regarding the possible sanction against the violent settler? Any effort High Representative is doing mainly towards Hungary, because it's no secret, it's Hungary the only country which is blocking the possible adding of violent settler in the sanction list. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. On this, as you know, there are several measures, but they're with the Council on this regard. So there was nothing further in this respect that was discussed, because there are measures now on the table. The same when it comes to the sanctions against the violent settlers. Indeed, as you rightly point out, there are proposals. Again, these are currently under discussion in the Council, but it's true that we had adopted sanctions. So there was one package was in 2024 in April, and also July under the EU Global Human Rights sanctions regime against extremist settlers. We want to go further, we want to do more, but as said, this is still in the Council.
Thanks. You have a follow-up? Go ahead. Then I'll take a couple of questions from remote before returning to the press room.
Anita, but regarding the concrete measure against Israel, until now there is almost the majority of the member states, not necessarily the qualified majority, but a majority of the member states in favor of taking some concrete measures against Israel. Did you see yesterday in the meeting there are more countries, let's say, are likely more open to examine the possibility of sanction against Israel? Thank you.
I'm not sure it's really for us.
We cannot go into
positions of member states on this matter. It is for the member states themselves. So I would suggest that you reach out to them. Sorry. You have a follow-up.
My question is not to tell me which member states, new member states, the names, etc. No. My question: did you see more member states? This is something you can say. It's not for the Council, but you are leading the Council yesterday, the meeting. So the High Representative, and you may know that if there are more countries or less countries, but this is my question. Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of the main takeaways from yesterday's session, I have already pointed out on the three main elements in terms of the aid, in terms of the ceasefire and the two-state solution, but also on the continuous engagement with the Israeli authorities to ensure that this takes place. Now, apart from the proposals that we have already on the table, including on the sanctions that I have just mentioned, they're all with the Council, so there's nothing new further in this respect. Also, yesterday's meeting was an extraordinary meeting. It was an informal FAC in this regard, so there was no further action to be taken apart from all the proposals that we have had so far.
Thanks, Anita. Lisa from remote.
Yeah. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Yeah, hi there. Anita, again, it's on Gaza and the meeting yesterday. Were actions including the partial suspension of the Israel-EU Trade Association Agreement discussed, do you know? Was the Horizon Europe issue discussed again? Was it revisited? Because a lot has happened since, I think, about 2 weeks ago when the European Commission put its proposal to the ambassadors. We've since had Chancellor Merz saying that military contributions to Israel will be suspended. The whole mood has changed. There is global outrage with what's going on in Gaza at the moment. So can you give us a sense of how that shifted and what the detail of that discussion was yesterday? Thank you.
Lisa, again, Anita, free to add, but the reality where we stand is we have made a proposal, and the proposal is with the member states. It's for the member states to consider whether to adopt this proposal and how to bring it forward. So we cannot at this stage say more, less, etc. It is with the member states, and it is for them to adopt the proposal. This is where we are today. Anita?
Yeah.
Lisa, you have a follow-up.
Yeah, so specifically at the last meeting when the ambassadors considered for the first time this proposal to suspend Israel from Horizon Europe, or part of Horizon Europe, Germany was the country that held out, along with, I think, 3 others. So will it be discussed at the meeting tomorrow between Ursula von der Leyen and Chancellor Merz? Thanks.
So, on the positions of member states, it's you reporting on them. It's not us, as I was trying to explain before, and we're not going to say anything additional in this sense. Tomorrow's meeting has been called by Chancellor Merz relating to Ukraine. This was very clear in the announcement he has made. Therefore, I cannot prejudge what the leaders will decide to discuss among themselves, but the video calls have a clear objective, which is preparing the upcoming bilateral meeting and more generally Ukraine. President Zelensky will be present and President Trump will join. Therefore, I believe this will be a clear focus of the talks. Rosie, from remote.
Hi, this is Rosie for DW. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Okay, great. So just to follow up on the last couple of questions, I understand this proposal regarding Horizon Europe is with the member states. The Belgian foreign minister had floated tomorrow, Wednesday, as a kind of internal deadline for those member states. I wonder, as a commission, do you have a message to the member states ahead of that potential talks on it? Presumably, you would like them to move forward on it. Is it frustrating as a commission to watch this? Have you been talking about the risks of inaction? What is your message to member states? Thank you.
Thanks, Rosie. I believe we have no specific message beyond the fact that we have made a proposal. It is part of the legislative procedure in the EU that the Commission makes a proposal and then the Member States bring it forward. This is where they are. I wouldn't know about internal deadlines or other deadlines. Perhaps the Council can support you more on this. But from our side, the message is the proposal that is on the table. Other questions relating to Gaza? Mose?
Thanks again. Yes, Anita, you mentioned there was a discussion, obviously, yesterday about administrative or bureaucratic obstacles or hurdles in delivering the aid by Israel. And I also noticed that in the previous statement on the 9th, EU ministers also mentioned that. One example was the difficulties in registration of humanitarian aid organizations. But according to media, there are many other bureaucratic administrative problems in delivering the aid into Gaza in those in need. And when you read, and that's been written quite a lot in media, which you must be aware about that, I suppose. And you get the impression that it's a matter of mismanagement.
Mose, the question, please.
Yeah, okay, but because it's a matter about mismanagement, I suppose, by Israel. And I would like to ask if there was any discussion, for example, yesterday, about the need to, let's say, to modify or renegotiate this understanding with Israel, because it was focused, I think, on figures, on aid tracks, and not so much about how actually to deliver the aid in an effective way. Thank you.
I will not concur with your conclusion. The key element was to ensure that we are getting aid as a matter of urgency into Gaza. So this was the important part. Now when it comes to the practicalities, I don't know if Eva would like to join us here, because the situation indeed remains difficult despite the progress that we have seen, but the situation remains very difficult. So the focus is put on delivering the aid and precisely ensuring there is efficiency in that. Eva?
Yes, indeed. Eva can join me, and let me just reiterate that the HRVP is, of course, in contact with her Israeli counterparts in the sense, and implementing the understanding is her priority at this stage.
Good afternoon, Mose and everybody. What I can say about the meeting yesterday, Commissioner Labib was there also, and she briefed the member states about the situation, about the humanitarian situation in Gaza. It's necessary to say that there is a progress, but it's far from an ideal scenario, and it's still very insufficient. Israel is imposing some administrative issues, restrictions to the NGOs and our partners, which means that the re-registration deadline was shortened to 7 days. Israel also requires a list of people, which was not the case in the past, and all this is bringing more and more obstacles in delivering the aid. So this makes the situation more complicated. Anita already talked about the airdrops. Airdrops, it's a spectacular injection, but it's not a solution. Airdrops can be dangerous. Airdrops are undermining the dignity. Airdrops, it's not a solution of the situation now in Gaza. What we need is a full access to be able to deliver in much larger scale.
Thanks, Eva. Other questions relating to the aid delivery specifically? David?
David Price, Your Democracy. Has any progress been made in controlling the or managing the situation where gangs are taking this aid, whether they're organized by Hamas or individual private gangs? We've talked about this some time ago, but this seems to be one of the major problems of controlling the actual delivery.
Look, we can hardly control the situation in Gaza if we are not allowed to be there. Our people are in Jerusalem. DG ECHO, Director General, was in the region. He was not allowed to go to Gaza due to security reasons. So we can hardly say what is the situation on the spot. Obviously, we are engaged with Israeli authorities, and we try to explain to them our requests and the reasons why we need to be on the spot, because we work with our partners and we would like our partners to deliver the aid according to the standards of the international humanitarian law, but this is unfortunately not possible. So it's in the hands of the Israeli authorities.
Other questions relating to aid deliveries to Gaza? Not the case. Other questions for Eva on the files she covers? Not the case either. Thank you, Eva. Other questions for us today? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Come Mustafa, I have a report. It's about the Armenia-Azerbaijan peace deal. In a joint statement after initiating in the White House peace deal between Armenia and Azerbaijan, in the joint statement of President Costa and von der Leyen, it was said that EU stands ready to invest in regional connectivity and full opening. I would like to know if there is a real plan behind this. Could you please elaborate on that? And also, will EU join to so-called TRIP in any capacity? Do you consider it complementary to the middle corridor in which you invest and interested hugely? And do you consider it a good possibility to attract Armenia to connectivity projects being developed in region, and till now it was outside of these projects? Thank you.
Thanks. I don't know if my colleagues can add more. What I can do is recall that there was recently a meeting between President von der Leyen and the President of Armenia, where they have reached a political agreement on the text of the new partnership agenda. And this is, of course, a clear commitment to strengthening the ties between our union and Armenia. For what concerns connectivity, we are providing substantial financial and technical assistance to Armenia, for example, through the Global Gateway Strategy, and I'm sure that Guillaume can provide further details on this. So we expect investments from the EU to reach 2.5 billion euros for inclusion, growth and connectivity in particular. we have a resilience growth plan that we have announced with Armenia, I believe, about a year ago. We have already provided assistance for leveraging investments, attracting more European companies to the territory. On connectivity, I believe we have several projects that are being funded via a global gateway. I don't know if Guillaume has the details at hand, but this is, of course, something that we continue to be working on with our Armenian partners. You have a follow-up. Go ahead.
Thank you. It sounds that you thinking only have some more close ties with Armenia, but I mostly ask about the wider picture, and Middle Corridor doesn't have any ties with Armenia in any way. And this new corridor, it's involved in Armenia and goes through its territory. So I would like to know more about the general on development in South Caucasus, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Thanks. I think on the Middle Corridor and specifically, I will have to ask colleagues to revert to you later. I'm looking at Guillaume, and I don't know if Eva will also be able to add some elements from her perspective on the Caucasus region. More generally, you, of course, have several partnership agreements there as well, but Guillaume will be providing you the details. Other questions? Go ahead. Yes? Yeah?
Anna Palatama with the FT. I just wanted to ask you or Olaf if you can give us any updates, if you have any, on the timeline and what is expected together with the joint statement from the US. Thank you.
Looking at Olaf, I believe work with our US counterparts continues. We don't have a specific timeline or any additional information to provide to you at this stage. You have a follow-up, Paula.
I just want to ask, is the wait open-ended on the EU side, or is there any way that you can reach an agreement within a specific timeline?
I think we have an agreement, but...
yeah, thanks, Paula. I think your question is best directed to the other side of the Atlantic. As I said here from this podium last week, we're now in the mode where we're waiting for the US to follow through on the commitments they've made, the clear political commitments they've made, and that's where we are right now. As soon as we have any updates, we'll be happy to provide them.
Other questions on this? Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Camille Hayes, for Politico. As a follow-up to Paola's question, I'm wondering if your sense of the delay, because we understood that the joint statement was imminent and now not much is happening, is your understanding that what's happening this week regarding Ukraine is delaying any progress when it comes to the trade talks? Thank you.
I think this is two completely unrelated matters that have no impact in terms of timing, one respect to the other. We have an agreement with the US. That agreement is taking effect in some of its parts. We have a joint statement that we're working on with our counterparts. Olaf has told you where we are, and this is the reality. The talks on Ukraine are a different topic and have its own framework and timings. Jacob from remote, and then I return to Edith in the press room.
Thanks, Olaf. Similar question, but basically, is there... Right now, we're paying higher tariffs than before August 1st, right? But none of the lower tariffs have come into force. So the longer that happens, the more tariffs our exporters are paying. And for the US, is there any pressure from the EU side other than saying it's the ball's in their court? At what point, after a year, after a month, after 3 months, will we decide, okay, we need to do more than say the ball is in their court? Because the whole goal of this deal, right, of accepting the 15 rather than 10% tariffs was to have lower tariffs on cars specifically. So I'm just wondering, or is there anything that the US is asking for? Is there commitments from the car industry for investments that they're waiting for? last week we were told the reason for the delay is that the Americans are busy with other things. But then they did pass an executive order for Japan lowering their car tariffs. So they could very easily have included the EU in that, right? It would have been 2 letters probably.
Jacob, we don't do the work of scheduling for the US. I'm not entirely sure why you refer to a 10%. Let me remind you that we have a 15% omni-comprehensive tariff, including MFN, which, as Olof has said time and time again, is on average 4.8. This for the EU is not added. And also you say higher tariffs. Compared to what? I also recall some announcements from the US side in April on which the tariffs that they were referring to were much higher. So the higher or lower, it depends at what point in time or to which announcements you are specifically relating to. We have a reality, which is an agreement with the US that has a 15% across-the-board tariff, MFN included, also for a number of industries, including cars, and then 0 to 0 tariffs in a number of other industries. It is an agreement that we believe is strong and is the best we could have under the current circumstances and the ambitions of the US administration. Of course, we expect the US to take the further steps that are part of this agreement, but I don't believe we are at a stage in which we can put a timeline to these engagements. We take the reality of today. This is where we are, and the rest is hypothetical. We count on the US taking the steps that are necessary on their side to fulfill these agreements. Olof, sorry.
I have nothing to add to that beautiful, beautiful monologue, Ariana. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Jacob, you have a follow-up. And then I had promised Edith.
Yeah, what you said is completely wrong. It's not true that the tariffs were higher before. The tariffs were 10%, now they're 15%. You say the reality of the deal is that cars included. The reality is that right now they're not included. Cars right now are not included. So I don't know what reality you're referring to. The reality I'm seeing, the EU is currently paying 27.5% on tariffs and has been for what, 14 days now?
Jacob, what is the question apart from your considerations?
The question is, you're saying that this deal is in force. The reality is the deal is not in force. So what will the EU do for the deal, with the key component of the deal being the cars, to come into force? Is there at any moment any leverage that the EU has other than saying the ball is in the US's court?
Thanks for your follow-up question, Jakob. We have nothing on substance to add. We have been very clear time and time again that the US has made a political commitment. You're talking specifically about cars. The commitment from the US is that the 15% across-the-board tariff will capture cars. We don't know precisely when that will happen. We know that it will happen. And I would also just point out that you said that these tariffs are being paid by EU exporters. No, they are not. They are being paid by US consumers. Ultimately, that's who picks up the bill. We've been very clear from the get-go in this saga involving tariffs that we believe tariffs are taxes, that they don't do any good, they harm the global economy, they put additional pressure on both sides of the Atlantic. That remains our view. Nonetheless, we have worked extremely hard to try and extract the best possible outcomes for the European Union in this very challenging scenario. And I remind you as well that in parallel to the work we've been doing to make the best of this challenging scenario, we are signing trade deals with partners around the world which will improve our competitiveness, open up new export opportunities and give us substantial ways to offset any damage that such tariffs may do. Second of all, we are taking strong action to remove the barriers within our own internal market. And the clear evidence, the clear economic evidence shows that if we were to remove those tariffs that prevent the single market from being all it can be in terms of trade, in terms of financial services, in terms of freedom of movement, workers, etc., that it would vastly outstrip any loss to our economy from potential tariffs now or in the future. So all that work is happening. It will continue to happen. We look forward to the US implementing its political commitment, and we will take the work from there.
We have about 15 minutes left together. I have a number of hands raised from remote and in the press room. Jacob, it's the third question you're asking. I would ask you to keep it very short, and then after this one, I will ask you to pick it up bilaterally with Olof, because I think it's fair for colleagues to be given the floor as well. Jacob.
Sure. Basically, are you saying this deal is good even if the U.S. does not fulfill the part of the 27.5% on cars going down to 15%? Because U.S. consumers are paying the tariffs anyway, so this deal is good for the EU also if the U.S. does not deliver on the cars?
Thanks for your last question, Jakob. At no point have I said that this is a good deal, quote unquote, for the EU. What we have said repeatedly from here, what our President has said, what our Trade Commissioner has said, is that if you look at the current global trade picture, if you look at the various deals that the US has signed with trade partners around the world, if you look at the commitments that the US has made on top of the executive order that has already been implemented, we feel strongly that we have succeeded in giving the European Union the best possible position in terms of competitiveness, in terms of continued trade, in terms of allowing our exporters to do what they do best. So yes, we look forward to the US implementing their final commitments, and in the meantime, I repeat, the work we are doing to strengthen our network of global trade partners and the work we are doing to remove all possible barriers within our own internal market gives us a strong position to remain competitive and to remain agile in strengthening our economy going forward.
Other questions on this? Edith, I had promised you the floor.
Thanks very much. Edith Hancock with Dow Jones. Just to follow up on Jacob's question as well, and also I just wanted to pick up on some of your wording, Olof, earlier. You said that you're waiting for the Commission is waiting for the US to follow through on its political commitments. So is there actually a growing concern within the Commission that that follow through isn't going to happen, that they won't follow through? And then with that in mind, what would the US have to not follow through on, be it cars, be it exemptions that they may, that you guys might be pushing for, in order for the Commission to feel that it's necessary to put retaliatory tariffs back on the table?
Thanks for your questions, Edith, but really we're going way too far into the realm of hypothetical scenarios here. We have a clear commitment from the US on all the areas I have mentioned. We look forward to them implementing those commitments as soon as possible. We are not going to go into any further hypothetical scenarios from this podium today. I'm happy to repeat what I've said before, which is that our countermeasures, which are now suspended, can at any moment be unsuspended. And we have discussed with our Member States in detail potential future countermeasures that could be used should they ever be necessary. But that's not where we're at right now. Right now we're waiting for the US to implement its commitments. We're working with them to finalise the joint statement, and we are close to doing so. We just need to get the final details organised. And when we have that work done, we'll look at the picture then and take it from there.
Other questions on this? Yes, go ahead.
So we can also take it up bilaterally if this is not the right time, but tensions between the US and India have surfaced. Does that encourage the EU to push forward with its own agreement with India? And if you have sort of any updates on that agreement going forward?
Thank you, but we have to be very strictly, there's a lot of conflating going on here today, dear friends. So let's just try and separate all the issues and look at them for what they are. So we're not going to comment on tensions or otherwise between third countries. When it comes to the ongoing talks between the EU and India to try and finalise a trade agreement before the end of the year, yes, that work continues. This would be an enormous breakthrough in terms of the two largest democracies in the world having in place a structured agreement from which to build trade, investment, cooperate across a range of other areas, technology and so on. So the goal remains to get that done before the end of the year. That's a very ambitious timeline. If you look back at the frequency of the meetings between political principals in recent months, you'll see that, this work is people are taking this seriously because the political commitment is there from the top level. And so, we're in August now. Things are a little quieter. But I mean, from September onwards, you will see that this will ramp up to the same frequency again, with the same end goal in mind. So that's all I can say for now. We look forward to that work continuing, and we are ambitious in our hopes that we can get something done before the year is out.
I see 2 hands raised from remote. Carl, and then Lisa.
Yes. Yeah. Question about diversification, since it is seen as a priority in the new trade context. Can Olaf update us on the Mercosur agreement? We were expecting a formal proposal from the Commission in late June already. So do you have a new timeline? And yeah, could the Commission make this proposal in August when things are more quiet, as you said, or do you think it will be later in the fall?
Carl, actually, this is a question that we answered last week. I don't know if Olaf wants to give the gist of it again, but otherwise, since we really have 5 minutes left together, I would ask you to check what Olaf had said on Thursday, I believe, on this matter. Lisa.
Thank you very much again. Olaf, I had one question for you on the US side, but I think you've answered it. I was going to ask, has the actual joint statement been finalised or not yet? I was just looking for the status of that, but you've just said you're working with them to finalise the joint statement. But I was also going to ask about China and wondering if anybody in the EU has opened some work monitoring the continuing surge in exports from China. I noticed yesterday in China that the government there is talking about how, the EU is under pressure and the tariffs that the US has imposed, which are 30%, are having an impact on its economy, and they were talking about an increased diversification of trade to the EU. Have you anything to say on that? Thanks.
Thanks for your question, Lisa. I remind you that we have set up a new body to look at potential impacts of the current trade configuration in order to anticipate at the earliest stage any possible changes in trade patterns, any possible harmful increase in imports into the EU from China or elsewhere. To date, as far as I'm aware, I'll double check that for you, but to date I don't think any evidence has indicated any such harmful surge. But we set up this new body precisely that we would have in the most structured way possible the information at the earliest date to be able to analyse it in detail, so that if we need to take any further action, we can do so fully armed with the best equipment and at the earliest possible stage. So we are keeping a close eye on global trade flows, how they may be impacted by the changing picture, and we do so, as always, in the interests of protecting our single market and making sure our exporters are not adversely impacted.
Thanks, Olaf. Other questions for Olaf? Not the case. Other question? David, is it for Olaf? No, okay. Other questions for us today? Go ahead.
Mondine S. from Euronews.
Yeah, it was working.
I have a question on the Stop Destroying Video Games Citizen Initiative. So if I'm not mistaken, the verification process was scheduled yesterday. So did it take place? What was decided? And maybe it's too early, but is the Commission planning to pass legislation to prohibit video games maker to kill their games, basically? Thank you.
Looking at colleagues, I'm not sure if it's you.
Yeah, I actually have responsibility for Citizens Initiative as well, believe it or not. I'm not familiar with the precise details of this, so I'll have to check and come back to you in the afternoon if that's okay.
Okay, unless Leah has anything to add from her side, I'm looking at her. Oh, perhaps why not, Leah, if you want? Thank you. It's a joint effort. Let's see if we don't provide you with all the details now. Olaf and Leah will coordinate in the afternoon.
Yes. So yes, indeed, I think
I'm not aware if any decision has been taken yet, but just maybe to recall the process on how those who launch the initiative can receive an answer. So within 1 month, there is a meeting organized with Commission representatives so that those who put forward the initiative can explain a little bit better what it is about. And then within 3 months, there is actually also an opportunity to present the initiative at a public hearing at the European Parliament. And then I think the last step is then within 6 months that the Commission will say which action, if any, it proposes in response to the initiative. And as you mentioned, a response could be putting forward a legislative proposal. But I think, you know, we are still quite far from that.
Thanks. Is there a question on this? No, but is there a question for Leah? Okay, let's go ahead then. Thanks.
Kuhlmeier from Euractiv. Just a quick question on foreign subsidies regulation. Given that you're launching the review, how many total probes have been conducted in the EU, and how many of those did the Commission launch on its own initiative? And of that share, which share was targeted at Chinese firms?
I'm not a super statistics person. I mean, you need to. So we have a part on mergers, I think, where we have quite a large number of notifications that have been. I mean, I remember we had, I think, 1 or 2 cases where we went in phase 2, but these were then approved after commitments. I think we have a couple of cases on initiative cases, but none of these cases are yet in kind of a full in-depth probe, so they are still in this preliminary review where we are able to send questions to the companies. And then we also had a few cases on the public procurement side where we opened an in-depth probe, but then the companies decided to withdraw the tenders. All this to say that I can come back to you more specifically on the things, really with the numbers.
You have a follow-up. Go ahead.
Was the foreign subsidy regulation brought up at the recent EU-China summit?
That I would not know. I don't know.
I'm not aware of this topic being raised specifically. I think the outcomes of the summit have been commented with statements. I believe the foreign subsidies regulation is a piece of new legislation that the EU is implementing all its international partners equally, and we are status of various cases we have going or the in the past years since it was adopted on China specifically. I think we don't have a year's plan. Other questions for Leah? Not the case. Thank you. Other questions for us today? David, last one. We are at the close of the 1 hour.
Thank you for your indulgence. David Price, Your Democracy. The European Media Freedom Act came into force a couple of days ago, and I welcome it as has its aim to protect journalists and their sources, and specifically independent journalists. I'm wondering, as there is a case in Belgium of an independent journalist being raided by the Belgian police, and the authorities not giving the warrant for this. The computers and everything else have been taken for a month and a half now, and I'm wondering how this particular act can help him to recover his independence as a journalist and his equipment as well. Can you help in any way?
Thank you, David. I think indeed the European Media Freedom Act is a very important piece of legislation. It has entered into force, as you were correctly recalling, on Friday. The President herself has welcomed this important milestone. She has said a free and independent press is an essential pillar of our democracy. with our European diplomatic its protections to journalists continue their crucial work and safety without interference or intimidation. The Freedom Act is to provide a framework. I'm afraid that as it's on the specific case you're referring to in this press room, we will not be able to enter into the specifics of it. It is a matter for the national authorities. We can never enter into the specifics of cases, but if my so otherwise, I believe in terms of the general framework. David, I'm afraid it is 1 hour. It was the last question. I understand it's a very good case. As I said, we're not going to Thanks a lot to everyone for having participated. Interpreters, colleagues, we will be back on Thursday for our next press briefing. Goodbye.